All right, so here's the deal. So first off, don't make fun of my writing at the top. Trust me, the drawing is going to be worse. I don't know why this is slowly like slanting down. I just did this a second ago. I'm not very experienced with paint. But what was supposed to happen in my life was I was supposed to take like 4 or 5 days, go home, see family, do all this cool stuff. I was really excited for it. Was really happy, and I had worked my way up, and so Wednesday morning I wake up, finished packing my bags because I procrastinate a lot. And I said, hey, let's drive to the airport. So I got my coffee, I got my car, I drove to the airport, got in the parking garage, walked all the way to the proper terminal. And then this is where the story begins. So, I'm supposed to fly out. I think boarding was at like noon. Okay. So just keep in mind the timeline. It's midday. Okay. Noon is when I board. And so, the typical airport thing, you have to get there, ahead of time, and you have to go through security. When I went through security, I bought like a $12 bottle of water because everything's super expensive and I wanted to stay hydrated. We wait then for an hour or two. We hop on the plane. We hop on the plane and I'm ready. My seat's awesome. The cushions are nice and squishy. I kind of paid for like slightly upgraded seats and I was feeling good about myself. And so we sat there for like, let's say 45 minutes. Now, at 45 minutes, I'm starting to think, what's happening here? But it is, I do live in a state where there's a lot of rain, so I thought maybe there's some weather. There was no communication whatsoever from the pilot, okay? And so we wait there again, 45 minutes, and then we hear from pilot on our on the plane. He's like, hey, there's a maintenance issue with the plane, and we need to see if we can fix the issue, so just hold tight. Now, what was weird was, so like this is the gate, okay? We have gate, okay? So I sat, hold on, this is me. That's the chair, hold on. That's the chair. Okay, this is me sitting. A very big feet. Okay, that's fine. Little body, little arms. Okay, this is me sitting right next to the gate, all right? And I sat there and I watched as a plane full of people, got the plane, kind of looks like a shark or some weird creature. Anyways, I watched as the plane flew in and like 100 some people got off the flight. And then we got on that flight and we sat there for 45 minutes and then they told me there was maintenance issues. So I was like, here, hold on, just in case there's any question. Plane. Ugh. Okay. I was like, that's kind of weird. Like, was there no communication from the previous pilot to this pilot? Did this issue just arise? What's the deal? So 45 minutes until we found out there's maintenance issues on the flight. Then we wait another 30 to 45 minutes, and everyone's getting really antsy. And they said, sorry, we have to deboard the plane because we have not been able to fix the maintenance issues. And so they dump us back out to where I was sitting before, and then there's this little desk, all right? So here's the desk. This is the help desk. And all 150 people are in this massive freaking line all through and running into all the other gates because people had to figure out what their plans were for the day. Because in my case, I had to fly to one destination more in the middle of the country and then get to where I was going. So I was going to miss my next flight. So they let us sit there for another 30 minutes, maybe another 40 minutes. And they said, hey, you need to leave this gate and exit this area of the airport. Go to the ticketing counter, which is like the thing you encounter when you first walk in the airport. So I got to walk. Here's me standing up. And I got to walk all the way through the whole freaking airport, back through everything, and then get to a ticketing counter. All right? So here's our ticketing counter. Great. So they said, hey, there's going to be faster response at the ticketing counter because they have lots of employees there. Don't stand here because those two people aren't going to be able to handle everyone. And guess what we did? We stood there. Here, let me just draw me standing. We stood there for 90 minutes with no response. It's the same people and just their own, just a new line. And we stood there because no one knew what the crap was going on. Meanwhile, my app Hold on, what am I drawing here? A line? Sure, there's a line. So, meanwhile, my map, or my app, excuse me, kept giving me notifications. Like, this flight's going to take off in 5 minutes. This flight's going to take off in 10 minutes. This flight, it just kept updating. And I think that's because they were trying to fix the plane and they didn't know if the plane was going to be fixed. So we started here sitting at the gate. Well, I was sitting at the gate at like 11 a.m. Got on the plane at noon. At this point, it's currently 3:30. So 3.5 hours pass, and I finally get to talk to somebody. Now, the sad thing of the whole situation is like, the airline employees are not the most helpful. And I get it. They have to deal with people like me. They have to deal with people who are traveling. And that could be really, people can be obnoxious. Plus, it's probably a very stressful work environment. But it doesn't help the situation when I've been sitting there for 3.5 hours and this person's not speaking loud enough and not being helpful and doesn't seem like they care. So I finally get up to the counter. So this is the lady at the counter. That's her hair. And that's her. You know what? Screw it. Anyways, so she's that squiggly blob. And I finally get up there. And I worked in customer service before back in the day, so I realized if someone's looks like they're having a bad day and kind of being a bad employee, that on my end of things, it shouldn't be this way. But me, as the customer, I need to be as helpful, as happy, and as joyful as possible to get what I want. And in this case, I wanted to know, when the crap am I going to leave this airport, right? So I was like the kindest I've ever been. Made a couple jokes too. I'm pretty sure she cracked a smile, but maybe she hated me more. Anyways, she began to tell me that there were no other flights leaving this airport to take me to the destination that I was trying to get to. There was no more flights. She said, however, it's currently 3:30. You can wait 2 hours, and by then, the flight might be fixed. And then you're going to take that flight to your other destination, and then we'll have additional flight for you waiting. And then you can take that flight, which would mean I'd take off at like 6. I'd land at the other airport at like 8:30. I get to my destination at home at like 11 or midnight or whatever. My parents are going to pick me up. My parents go to bed at like 10 p.m. So I'm like, no, I don't want to inconvenience my folks. But I asked her, I was like, wait a second. So if I wait 2 hours, is there any guarantee that this flight is going to fly? She said no. I said, okay. So meanwhile, while I was waiting in this line, we'll call this in the line of death, I was searching for other flights on different airlines because I was thinking maybe there was a way that I could get in another airline because American was just having a rough day. So immediately after I speak with her, it's like 3:40, okay? 3:45, something along those lines. While I've been in that line, I noticed there was another airline that had a direct flight to a city which is like an hour outside of where I was trying to fly to. So I'm texting my friends. I'm texting my brother, my brother-in-law. I'm texting my mom and dad. I'm texting my second cousin twice removed. Honestly, I probably should have tweeted and said, hey, any viewers want to pick me up? So I'm like trying to contact people. And eventually I get a call from my girlfriend and she says, hey, what about my sister? And what about my mom? They said they'd come over and pick you up. And now I felt bad because like I got other people involved in this thing. But long story short, they're like, sure, we'll pick you up if you take the new airline at that other city. So I'm like, okay, we can do this. And the takeoff was at 4:20, okay? 4:20 p.m. So, hold on, I gotta draw me again. Here's me at the counter. Here I am. See how happy I am? Okay, so I'm at like Terminal 2. I need to get to Terminal 4, and I've got like 25 minutes. So I'm booking it. I'm trying to order the ticket on my phone. Only, unfortunately, the freaking Wi-Fi or the data or whatever wouldn't work. So I'm like, okay, I need a ticketing counter. And the one lady says, hey, go to this ticketing counter. And I go to that ticketing counter. She goes, no, you need to go down the escalator, down the elevator to the left. So I'm like, down the escalator, down the elevator to the left. And then I show up there, and there's some lady, not even kidding you, smoking a cigarette in the line I'm in. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to take forever. So I finally got to book it on my phone. And then I have to travel all the way to that other terminal, and then I get through security again. And when I get to security, they stop me, and they need to give a second. They need to look at my bag. But there's a line of bags that needed to be looked at. Now, remember, I'd already been through security somewhere over here. Okay? And I'm like, what? I'm like literally about to miss my new flight. Okay? Keep in mind that this lady told me I wouldn't get a refund for my original flight if I didn't cancel it before the flight. All this stuff. So anyways, come to find out what was in my bag after I waited 15 more minutes was the water bottle I bought at the gift shop back here for like $12. And of course, you can't bring water past the security checkpoint. So rip $12 and rip that water. That gets thrown out. So I'm like, okay, it's fine. And so I make my way all the way to the new gate. As I'm in line boarding, I'm calling this airline and I'm trying to cancel the flight that they want me to wait for like 3 hours. Okay. I'm also coordinating with my girlfriend's mother and sister and my mother and like everyone. I'm just trying to like figure out like who's going to pick me up. Okay. So anyways, nightmare scenario, deep breath. I board this new plane. Hold on. I board new plane on new airline. This even looks more like a sea creature. It's a wonder these things couldn't fly because they don't look like they could really fly. I board this plane at like 4:30, 4:45, something like that, okay? And I was supposed to land at 6:55. Plane. Oh, God, I forgot the end. Plane 2. So we're supposed to land at this, the other destination at 6:55. I sit down. Also, the benefit was of this one, it was direct. So like this, I had to go to one destination, and then this was direct. So I'm like, okay, actually, this isn't going to be too bad. Paid for the new ticket, sat down. I had no one next to me. Not just the seats to my left and right, but like across the aisle, there was no one there. I was like, oh my goodness. Life is balancing out. All these bad things happened to me, and now all these good things are happening to me. This is going to be fine. Girlfriend, sister, and mother say, okay, we're leaving. We're going to pick you up. We're going to head out now. I'm like, perfect. We're about to take off. "45 minutes pass. And again, I'm starting to get antsy. But I started to read this book. And the book's talking about how, like, literally, I didn't even plan this. The book's literally talking about, and this will be important later, about how, like, it was comparing life to a series of, like, red lights, green lights, and yellow lights. Pretty cheesy, I know. But the part that I was starting on was talking about how sometimes life's going to throw you a lot of red lights, but you can turn them green. Stupid, I know, okay? I wasn't really that into it, but I had nothing else to do. So I'm listening to my music, reading this book about how life's going to get better. Not exactly what the book's about. And the guy comes on, and the pilot comes on, and he says, hey, we're in a line of 11 planes, and we're not going to take off for most likely like 30 minutes to 45 minutes because we're in a line of these planes. I apologize for the inconvenience. Blah, 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 blah. Please be patient. And I start dying laughing because I'm like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. Like, this is not happening. But I'm like, okay. So I text my ride. So girlfriend, sister, mom. I say, hey, it's going to be delayed. So don't get there yet. Because, like, I don't want them to show up to some city have nothing to do for me. I already felt bad that they were going to pick me up in the first place. So we get to like 30, 40 minutes pass. Pilot's like, thank you very much for your patience. We are third in line, and there's weather on our route, which means we will not be able to take off. And I'm like, great, just keep piling it on. He goes, however, we're going to get a reroute, and we should have enough gas if we have to go a little bit out of our way to go directly there. Everything's going to be fine. And I was like, wow, thanks so much for the communication, So I then sent out another text. They're, again, like trying to leave. I'm like, nope, don't leave. Don't pick me up. It's going to be more of a delay. We get to the front of the line, okay? We get to the front of the line, and he says, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, we have no gas in the plane. We have to circle back and get gas. At this point, I'd been in this new plane for like 2 hours, maybe an hour and a half. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me, man. You've got to be kidding me, all right? But I'm like, listen, it's fine. So I was not in a happy state. So I'm trying to text the people who are trying to leave. They're literally driving, and I'm like, no, go back. Or like stop somewhere, because like we didn't even take off yet. Ugh. Keep in mind, my phone's at like 10%. So I'm like trying to conserve the battery. So we get back to the gate, we start gassing up. And I go up, I'm like, do you know how long it's going to take roughly? Again, using the same little theory I did with this scraggly haired lady. I was like, let's be as nice as possible. They said, should take about 20 minutes to gas up, 10 minutes to ferry out, and then, or trolley out, whatever they call it, taxi out, sorry. And then we're going to fly. So I then give an update to my ride and say, this is the situation. The gas finishes, and nothing was happening. The plane was just sitting there. So I waited another like 10 or 15. At this point, it's been 30 to 40, something like that. And I go up, and I'm like, hey, what's the situation? They said, wait a little bit. We're going to tell the whole plane. So I wait a little bit, probably another 5 to 10, who knows. And they say, unfortunately, like they kind of explained how airports work. Apparently there's like gate teams that have to detach the gate from the plane. And the gate team wasn't scheduled to be there because they weren't supposed to be gassing up. So we had to wait for a gate team to free up some time. And all the gate teams were like at another terminal, or apparently who the crap knows. They said this could take some time. Now I need to back up a little bit. So I mentioned before I didn't have anyone next to me on the plane, right? It was the perfect seat setup. Okay? So I was good with that. And I had my headphones, and I had my book that was trying to tell me life was going to get better. And life just continued to slap that book in the face. Right at that moment, all the children that were on that plane started to freaking scream. And I'm not even kidding, guys. My headphones go, you have no battery left. Goodbye. And then I just hear, wah, wah, all different. It's like 1 2-year-old cried. And then it's like a call. It's like dogs barking across the street when you're walking them. They're communicating. Yeah. Front of the plane, back of the plane, middle of the plane, all the kids, freaking screaming. And my headphones are dead. And there's no gate crew to take me off the freaking plane. And I'm like about to have a panic, anxiety attack. I'm like about to lose my mind. And so I waited another, I should say my ride. So my girlfriend's mother and sister were like 30 minutes out of the city. I wanted them to pick me up at a Chili's. And they'd been at that Chili's for like an hour already. Okay. And here I am. We had yet to even leave, and it's like a 2-hour flight. And so everyone, it was horrible. It was 7 p.m., which was the time that I was supposed to land from this plane. And we still had not left. And I was like, is that gate still connected? And they're like, yep. And I was like, can I leave? They said, yep. And I left. I just went home. So I arrived at the airport at like 11, went through one security checkpoint, stood at one gate, entered this plane, sat in this plane for, I don't know, an hour, left that plane, stood in this line for 1 to 2, got onto this plane, was on this plane for 2 to 3, or 2 to 2.5, who knows, and I went home. That was a full day. I got home at like 8, what kind of 8 is that? Okay, I got home at 8:30. And so this plane here eventually took off that night and arrived around like 11 p.m. at our destination, which means if I hadn't have left, my girlfriend's mother and sister would have sat at that Chili's for another like 3 hours before picking me up. So I'm really glad I left. Like, I was stressed out of my mind and I was seriously about to lose it. So that was like 50% of the reason I left, because I was just so utterly anxious and miserable. But also, I didn't want to make them wait at some other city for me for 3 more hours and then have to drive me home. So, so yeah, and then I looked. I was like, do I really want to try this again? Do I want to go through this whole ordeal? And I looked at flights for the next day, and the cheapest flight was $1,500 for one way. So I said, I'm not doing that for obvious reasons. And so the whole trip was canceled. So, so here's the funny thing. So I still don't have any refund. I have no refund from the first flight. The second refund, I got a $50 voucher for the 3 hours I sat in the plane. So I was like, whoa, can't wait. So I got a $50 voucher, but I don't have any refunds for any of these flights yet. And I'm going to have to go through the ordeal of calling these people and trying to figure it out. But like in the case of this one, I literally left the plane. So they might not want to refund me there. In the case of this one, they did cancel the first one, but there's still like the return flight that I eventually have to deal with. And apparently can't request a refund until after the date of when that would have been or something. So that's my story. That's why I'm here. That's why I that's why I didn't get to go home with family. I was at the airport for 9.5 hours and I moved nowhere. But I went through 2 security checkpoints. So I was extra secure and I was in 2 different planes. It was rough. It was absolutely ridiculous. So yeah, that's the story.